Hello, everybody. My name is Sami. I'm the CEO of CertiCraft. We are on a mission to help craft cannabis producers transition into and thrive within the new regulated market here in Canada. Though I guess it's not really that new anymore. It's been almost 3 years now. Our flagship product is a compliance software to help people stay on top of all their records and generate all the reports they need for Health Canada and the CRA. And this is the start of a new webinar series called The State of Craft. We've recognized here at CertiCraft that there have been quite a bit of challenges in the regulated market so far. Things have been improving. We've seen the CRA and Health Canada try to make things better. We've seen provincial governments try to make things better. And what we wanted to... Oh, hi, Sam. I'm glad that's confirmation this is working, so thank you. Also, Sam, I'm never going to give you up. And we wanted to invite really awesome people from across the cannabis industry, really respected thought leaders in the space, to come and share their perspectives on what they've seen going well, what they've seen going not so well, and to get their thoughts on how they think that we can shift this industry to be better for everybody overall, so that the craft cannabis industry can thrive. And so without further ado, I'm going to invite our two guests here, Kieley and Che, to the stage. I found Kieley. Where is Che? Che. Here's Che. Invite on stage. So they should be with me here in a moment. Hi, Kieley. Hi, Che.
Hi, Sami.
Che, your video is off now. Kieley, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me? Am I coming through loud and clear?
Yes. Can everybody else?
We are successful.
I believe so. Che, your video's not on, but we'll just keep going without that and hope that we can get your video back on at some point. So Kieley and Che, you guys, the reason we invited you is that you two are kick-ass people that are super well loved by a lot of people in the craft cannabis community. You both have been licensed for some time now, and you guys have approached craft cannabis world in the legal space in very different ways. Kieley, you started an indoor micro. Che, you started an outdoor permaculture farm standard, and both of you are. Che, are you connected with us here?
Yeah, I'm here, Sami. I'm just trying to get my camera to open up.
Okay. If it struggles, maybe I can kick you off and bring you back in, because that worked for me earlier when things didn't work.
The little wheel on the bottom, I think, is your audio video settings, and you have to choose your camera. That might be it.
Yeah, I'm actually pushing that button, and it's just not. It's not working.
Oh.
You know what, Che? I'm gonna kick you out and bring you back in, because that's what fixed it for me earlier when it wasn't working in our test. So. Let's try that. And in the meantime, Kieley, since you are here without struggles, why don't you start by letting us know about who you are and kind of what led you to creating Parkland Flower?
Thanks, Sami. Thank you so much for having me today and speaking to all these wonderful people. I'm seeing lots of hellos here and people I recognize. So nice to see everybody. My name's Kieley. I started Parkland Flower back in 2018 with the intent of getting a micro cultivation and then a processing license. I met our grower, Dustin McLean, long before we decided to move forward with this, and we were growing cannabis. He was growing cannabis for medical patients, and I was turning that flower into other products, such as suppositories, tinctures, and other things to help them get through some chronic illnesses. I did have quite a stint in the legacy side, and I'm just really excited to be able to bring cannabis legally now, and yeah, it's been a journey, that's for sure. So I'm excited to talk about it today.
Thanks, Kieley. Che, can you let us know about yourself and what brought you to creating Rosebud Cannabis Farms?
Sure, yeah, I'd be happy to. I'm actually a second-generation grower. My father was a cultivator as well as a breeder, and I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to learn from him at an early age. And cannabis became my passion. in some ways it was self-medicating, and in other ways it opened up avenues in my life that I really appreciated. And so from a young age, I followed that path, even though there was obvious risks involved. I was just following what I love to do. And then at some point, we saw U.S. start to open up the potential to legal cannabis, and I got excited. I got excited that I could actually do what I was passionate about to make a living. And then that's when I focused on doing the transition, making transition from legacy, and just never looked back. And now here we are today.
Great. Cool. So to the audience, just so you guys know, there's a questions section there next to the chat up top. And what we're going to do here is for the next roughly 40 minutes or so, we're going to go through a discussion to kind of get Kieley and Che's thoughts on the state of the craft cannabis industry today. And then after that section is over, we're going to see what all the questions are that have been asked. And there's going to be a 15-minute question and answer section. So I believe that this system lets you upvote questions that you like. So maybe can somebody just ask a random question just so we can test out that capability. And while one of you lovely audience folks are doing that, I'm going to open up a question to both of you. Whoever feels inspired to answer first, go for it. Oh yeah, you can upvote. Okay, that's sweet. In your first year as being a licensed producer in this space, what have been a few things that you feel like have gone actually really well? What you know, there's a lot of people who always talk about the things that haven't gone well, the challenges in provincial policies, the challenges with the federal regulations. What's something that has gone well, if there is anything that you feel has gone well in the legal space at all?
Go ahead, Kieley.
Oh, okay. Oh, of course. Well, first of all, we've only been licensed for 9 months, so I haven't had a full year under my belt yet. But some things that have gone really well is, we successfully launched 2 pre-rolls. Through another processor, Beaudry, who are right down the street from us. We successfully became the first micro cultivator to sell directly to the AGLC, and we now currently have 7 seed SKUs available to cannabis home growers and collectors in Alberta, and we also successfully have gotten product into 3 provinces now. So these are milestones, not just for us as a company, but milestones for micro cultivators everywhere. I think another thing that's been, really successful is, that we're doing it, and we're doing it legally. We've gotten products on the market. We've gotten an immense amount of support, and even with all of the challenges that we face, and the burdens and the money and the struggles, we're here. And I'm not looking over my shoulder every day wondering, is there going to be a knock on my door? Am I going to be going to court? Am I going to lose my kids? These are the things that that I'm grateful for.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Yeah. I agree. Just the fact itself that we have this opportunity, that's huge. It's really easy to focus on all the problems and forget the big picture, take things for granted. So it's nice to step back once in a while and go, holy cow, weed is legal. There is this opportunity. Because 15 years ago, you would have told me this was coming, and I would have called you a liar. So I'm really thankful to be in this position to be able to do what we're doing.
Cool. And Kieley, I got a clarification question for you. When you say sell directly to the AGLC, do you mean that that's with your microprocessing license and with your sales amendment, you did all of the things yourself, or something different?
So anybody who has a cultivation license can legally sell cannabis seeds or plants to anybody holding that are legally allowed to sell products directly to consumers. So that's how we are able to directly sell our seeds to the AGLC. So if you're a micro cultivator and you start out with seeds, you can sell them directly. You find your market, and getting them through. I did achieve our processing license. I basically, once I got my cultivation license, about a month later, I applied for my processing license, and 4 months later, I was issued that processing license. So we are now working towards a sales authorization, which will then allow us to sell other value-add products such as dried flower, pre-rolls, and 2.0 products. It just depends on what sales authorizations you go for.
Yeah. Okay. And so, Lisa, I think that answers your question there. It sounds like Kieley doesn't have her sales amendment yet, but it's in the process of doing that. So I'm going to hit start live answer there and done answering. Cool. So Che and Kieley, like, what are some of the things that you see changing on the horizon that have you feeling excited about the direction that maybe some of the legislation, some of the policies, some of the regulations that you see moving? Is there anything of that nature that you feel compelled to share about?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that. I think I'm excited to see reduced hurdles, and that's one of the major challenges from legacy transition is the obstacles to overcome. It's, in my opinion, it's been over-regulated, but of course it's a lot easier to take rules away than it is to add more later. So I understand how it came to that. But I'm excited to see those barriers coming down. I'm excited to have opportunities to have dialogue with Health Canada. And to be honest, in my opinion, they are actually paying attention. They are listening to what us cultivators are suggesting and working towards making changes. That's exciting to me. I would love to see this community find its place in the legal cannabis industry. Specifically here in the Kootenays, this is, in my opinion, sort of ground zero for legacy cannabis production. And to tell you the truth, there's not a lot of financial opportunities here. Logging is declining, mining is at better days. So what's really left? And I think it just makes sense to allow these legacy growers to take their place in the market. So I'm happy to see it's an easier path to success all the time for our community.
And Che, are there any specific hurdles, like when you say you're seeing those hurdles get reduced, are there any specific ones that you have in mind that you really feel are transforming and lessening in the coming months and year?
Yeah, like the first one to me is the security clearance. It's a big challenge to not be able to apply for security clearance until you're near application approval. Basically, you don't find out if you cleared security until the day you get your approval or not. That's been a real challenge from a couple fronts. Of course, the legacy industry, often we've had bumps and run-ins with the law along the way. And then to ask an investor, most often this is investors' money we're playing with, to invest in you and have that uncertainty is a challenge. It makes it really difficult. So I'm starting to see more and more applications successful, even in scenarios when it would be questionable if this person's going to make it or not. For example, been caught with a few pounds in their trunk at one time or something like that. So it's nice to see that the government is allowing people in situations like that to transition and not denying them at the front gate. Mm-hmm. So that's one great example. Also, there's a couple of working groups, one Sami, you're involved with as well, where our communities come together and we're actually having direct dialogue with Health Canada, as I mentioned. They really are listening, like I said, and that's exciting. There's a lot of regulatory, it's a really over-regulated industry, as we mentioned before. And as we reduce more and more of those regulations, it just becomes an easier, simpler path. People here, they grow. They're good growers, they're good cultivators, but they're not necessarily regulatory experienced or an MBA or those types of things that are, in fact, almost more than half of what it takes to be successful in this industry. So the more we reduce the paperwork and let people just grow, I think the more opportunity there are for legacy growers.
Kieley, is there anything you see reducing that you're excited about in the coming months and year?
I don't know if it's going to be reduced, but if there's any whispers of it, that's the excise duty. That is definitely one of the largest hurdles for anybody who moves into selling seeds, clones, or if they have their sales authorizations and then selling a product.
So wait, sorry to stop you there for a moment. For those of us who have experience with flower but don't have experience with the legal world of seeds and clones, can you walk us through the relationship between excise duty and seeds and clones?
One seed, one plant equal 1 gram of cannabis. Therefore, I have to charge immediately $1 plus any additional excise duty that that particular province is. So, for example, in Alberta, there's an additional 16.8% excise duty. When you're selling,
That's on the sales price of the. Okay.
yeah. So depending on what you charge for your seeds, your minimum, you're going to have $1, up to $2, and if you have some really great genetics, where you're in that premium category, as there always was in the illicit side, you could be looking at $2 to $3 in duty. Also, the duty on, Che, you're making rosins, right? And so the duty per milligram is, a penny a milligram. And so if you've got like a really awesome rosin, you're going to get hit with quite a bit of duty. And that's why you're not seeing larger formats of product, because the duty eats so much into it. So it's just like, trying to work through those things, especially if you don't have the like you said, an MBA, the experience of doing those calculations. They are not easy. Trying to learn them and figure them out, calculating them for each province. That's the other challenge, because every province has a totally different system. And so they have a different excise duty. Now, not all. There's 4 different provinces that have additional duty, but then they all have totally different distribution models as well. So if I have one product, and I want to get it into 5 different provinces, I am filling out 5 different spreadsheets, 5 different 5 different applications. I'm getting 5 different licenses for that province, for each one for each province. And so that's very challenging on a micro scale, because you just don't have the people power a lot of times. Like there's
you don't have an entire team dedicated to just sales and marketing.
When you're a small micro and you've got your grower, you might have a QA, you might have, trimmers or whatnot. You've got harvesting staff and things like that. And then you have to have somebody that covers your marketing, your distribution, somebody that's going to do all your regulatory compliance. And oftentimes that's going to be your responsible person or the owner of the business. And it requires a lot of skills. And these micros are getting into these businesses, and it's the learning curve is a hockey stick. It's, you're like, okay, what am I learning today?
And almost all the learning is outside of the realm of cannabis itself.
It completely is. It often has nothing to do with the actual growing of cannabis. And you do need to do that. You need to grow an amazing product as well. I love when I get to spend time in my facility, and I have been there once this week.
Yeah.
Because I am continually on my computer and my phone. Dustin's amazing, and he's an amazing grower. He's super attentive, and our breeder Ron, same thing. They're really taking care of the facility while I can't be like, I'd love to be in there just trimming. I'd love to be in there just like hanging out with the plants. But
you wouldn't have created a cannabis facility if you didn't love that.
Exactly. The thing, I barely get to spend any time in there because I am literally overwhelmed by the amount of paperwork, the amount of correspondence that has to be done. It's, and that responsible person at a micro, you end up wearing 10 or 15 different hats that these larger licensed producers have entire teams doing. And that's where we need to come together as a community and share those resources and teach each other. We're only going to make, right, Shay? We're only going to make it easier for those that come behind us, and that's my goal. I do. It's not a competition. There's room for all of us.
Yeah, I completely agree. If you want to grow cannabis, starting a cannabis company probably isn't the best thing to do. If you like doing emails and Zoom calls, then you're on the right path. No, but really though, it has become my day-to-day life. I miss being out in the garden, growing plants, having that connection with your garden. And now I'm making the best of the Zoom calls. I mean, it's part and parcel. If you want to do something like this, you got to jump through the hoops. But just don't have any false ideas that you're going to get to spend your days in your garden smoking a doobie, because things change. It's not like that anymore. Another challenge I wanted to mention quickly is sales and distribution. And Parkland and Kieley have done a great job. They're really at the tip of the spear on that. But unfortunately, it's a challenge. Unfortunately, small
that's the biggest
batches.
challenge I hear from all of our customers. It's always the sales and distributions is the main thing.
Yeah, and with a micro, you're looking at smaller batches, small volumes, and you have to sell to a processor or another standard or licensed producer. And often they're not very interested in 25 kilos or 50 kilos. They would end up blending it into some of their flour and making vape pens out of it. So inevitably you end up with not a premium price, although you may have a premium product. And that's another challenge. We are seeing that changing. There's some microprocessors coming on board that are highlighting that craft small batch quality. Seems a little bit easier these days to get into the distribution network. But at first it was a real challenge. There's some local growers here that jumped the hoops early and made the gauntlet, got their license, and then had a really hard time selling a premium quality product. So I think that's another challenge, and it's one of the things that we're excited to be looking to demonstrate solutions to. We're working on a cooperative processor here in the Kootenays, which is started and backed by the Community Futures program. We've got a lot of really intelligent people on that board, and we're making some progress. The idea is that we can work together at a cooperative processor here to pool our genetics, to pool our lots, to contribute to specific brands or byproducts. And there seems to be a lot more potential for a higher dollar sale at the end of the day.
And I would say, like, most importantly,
sorry, if I could make a point on that, Shay, is that whether you have a 25 kilogram lot or a 500 kilogram lot, the costs to get it into your channel are the same, right? So if it costs $4,000 when you include your testing and a few other of those things, it stays the same. Like it costs $1,500 to get for one SKU to get into the AGLC. It costs $1,100 or $1,200 for testing, and whether that's 5 kilograms or 100 kilograms, right? So that's where that pooling of the resources is definitely going to be key, like making it like the wine industry where you have a central processor and you have all of the surrounding farms. I think that's a model that is really in development right now, because right now a lot of us are sending products, to who knows where to get it processed, because that's who purchased it. And so, these are conversations you need to have well before you even start, even building your facility.
And that's what a lot of operators here in the Kootenays have figured out, which is why this co-op was started. And my favorite thing about the co-op is that it's owned by the cultivators. It's all the cultivators that have struggled with this for the past, I don't know, year or two, or in some cases who have seen people struggling with it or going through their licensing process, realizing I'm going to struggle with this too. And they've all come together here as a community to co-create a thing that's going to be a solution where the interest in the product is the same interest that the cultivators have. There's not like a different company coming in that doesn't have a background in the cannabis industry that's just trying to make a buck and doesn't really care about the quality, which you see a lot in the LP world. There's a lot of that.
We have a similar co-op being built out here as well in Alberta to support Alberta, Saskatchewan, and even BC. I think the co-op model is going to be, there's challenges with it as well, but it is, you have a little bit more, you have a vote, as a member of a co-op, you have a vote. So therefore you have a say, not like when you go to say a private processor to have your product processed. And I think the other thing that we're all starting to realize is that the reason we're sometimes getting those lower prices, even though it's a premium product, is because if you took the costs yourself, that's the price. That's essentially what you're going to make. And there's so many hidden costs to distribution. There's so many hidden costs to getting a compliant product. And these are the types of costs that the processor right now is taking on. And that's why you're seeing these, sub $4 offers per gram, because on the other side of things, they're eating these massive costs to get products to market. And I think as the entire industry evolves and improves, we're going to learn and see and even change the regulation to help bring those costs down. We're not seeing it yet. But I think there's, I still wouldn't discourage people from not entering the industry if that's something that they're passionate about. You just have to kind of tweak your business model now to understand that that's what we're looking at now. And as we improve the industry, reducing those costs, that we're getting closer to building a sustainable business model for small producers.
Yeah, I completely agree. If we look at the legacy market, there was no Work BC, there was no taxes, there was no all of this other stuff. Now we're dealing with all of that. Plus, there's 5 hands between the cultivator and the actual consumer. So if the goal of the government is to bring this high quality legacy product into the legal system, we have to take a good hard look at profit margins, because nobody's going to make that transition and end up in the red. So I think that's a really important point.
And I think you bring up a pretty great point there, Jay, about all the middlemen that exist now. You in the legacy market, it was often 1 or 2 people between you and the actual person who is going to consume your product. And now you've had 2 to 3 additional new middlemen added. And in most provinces, one of those middlemen is the government acting as a central distributor. And the government has shown that they really have no idea how to value cannabis. Most governments most distribution boards have taken the approach of 20% plus THC equals good, less than that equals bad, and that's how we value things, completely ignoring the quality of the product, completely ignoring the terpenes, completely ignoring so many things that really do matter in the world of cannabis. Like, Che, you and I were talking earlier this week, and there's this metaphor we use that I like, which is you can't walk into a retail store today and buy a bottle of nice wine so that you can just have a glass of wine with your dinner. That's just not a possibility. The only thing you can do is go in and buy vodka gin, and most of it's shitty. Maybe there's 1 nice handle, and that's kind of it in your average retail store. And I think that is starting to shift. I think the distribution boards have realized that, maybe a big part of why people aren't starting to buy illegal cannabis because there's not really good options. And, I see the OCS doing some great things. I know BC's been trying to introduce farm gate and direct delivery. Me and you, Jay, are part of talking to the Cannabis Secretariat office here, and they seem really excited to actually try to make things better. But one question I have for both of you is, have you guys looked at all at the medical sales side? Because to me and to us at CertiCraft, that seems like a pretty straightforward way to cut out a few of those middlemen. Because now with the federal medical sales license, you have the ability to sell directly to patients who register with you. And I'm curious if that's at all been something you guys have considered, and if so, what your thoughts are about that.
Absolutely. But you still have to have sales authorization. You have to have processing, and you have to have sales authorization in order to do that directly. So you still have to have all of those things in place. And you can just look at the numbers from larger licensed producers and look at where are they making their money. Are they making their money in the medical side, or are they making it on the retail side? And, again, if the medical patients aren't there because it's not accessible, it's hard to get prescriptions, it's not easy. A lot of medical patients are going to recreational side to purchase their cannabis, or still going back to the legacy market because it's not accessible medically. And so, trying to build up patient databases, the amount of paperwork Like, it's one thing to sell a product wholesale, and I'm going to put out 1,000 units, right? So I'll put out 1,000 ounces, right? Which is, that's a nice haul. You put out those 1,000 units, and it's all at once. You have one shipping cost. You have one client. You have one of this, right? You put it into a medical channel. Now you're dealing with hundreds of patients. You're dealing with shipping and receiving. You have to ship 1 unit or 5 units to one patient at a time. And so the logistics of that, most micro cultivators are simply not equipped. That's why we chose to work with a company like Patient's Choice. Patient's Choice is basically a non-possession. So they manage all the client databases, and it's basically like a drop ship option. But again, they have to build up that clientele. They have to build up that patient database, and they're new as well. So we're helping with them do that. And so, we're so in our infancy stages. I mean, really, micro cultivators, we've only been allowed to even apply for 2 years, right? Because we weren't allowed to actually apply for a license a year after recreational legalization, right? So we're actually a year behind, and we're just starting to see some of these things. And I think one of the reasons that the government did do that was so that some of the larger processors would have the capability to process product for micros as they came online. I think now, if you're a micro cultivator planning to get into processing, there's a lot of planning, and you need to have specialized personnel. You have to have a qualified QAP. So yeah, like there's a lot of steps to get to, say, that medical patient. And then again, sales and distribution is challenging. So, I think working together, like in a co-op style, is going to help demystify and give some reality checks to folks about what it really takes to succeed in this industry.
And in the co-op here in the Kootenays, like I think the intention of that co-op, one of the main things they're trying to do is to set up that patient database. I mean, the legacy market in the Kootenays really started to support cancer patients, people with epilepsy, all the various medical conditions that cannabis is such an amazing medicine for. That's what drives so many of the growers that I've gotten to have had the pleasure of meeting here in the Kootenays. And so there is a huge network of people who have now been kind of left in the dust as Health Canada of all groups has kind of decided, you know what, we don't care about medical anymore. We're just going to push this recreational thing, and that's all that matters. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's kind of what it feels like.
I think Health Canada's purpose is to ensure the safety of Canadians and ensure that Canadians are getting a safe product and that it meets a certain standard. And did it create hurdles and barriers? Absolutely. Some of it's unintended, some of it was intended. I do believe that there were barriers put up to deter people from trying or consuming cannabis as well. I think some of that was misguided. But we're 3 years in. We are literally 3 years in on the recreational side, and really only 2012 was when medical cannabis really got serious. 2001 was when medical cannabis was legalized. So we are really still in the infancy stages. Tons of room for improvement. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I see most of the small batches go to the medical sales. I think the distribution network isn't really set up to take on those small batches efficiently yet. And as we mentioned before, economy of scale certainly kicks in as well. And so when you're looking from the perspective of the government, the profit margins aren't there by the time you get a SKU and you pass on these small batches to the retail outlets. And unfortunately, that money rules the world for the most part. And so that's the perspective it's coming from. I would love to see medical sales, online sales model available for rec as well. That would be a great opportunity for us small craft growers to get our product directly to the customer. Often there'll be a customer that searches out your brand and wants your product. But if you're only available in a medical platform, they don't bother going to get their license just to get your product. They'll just go to the store and buy something else. So I think I would love to see the online sales both rec and medical. I think that would be a major improvement.
Yeah.
And it's what people have shown that they want. I mean, in the illicit market, which still dominates in terms of market share, the legal space, there's over 200, 250 different illegal online dispensaries, and it's where most Canadians are purchasing their cannabis today. And so I think there's a huge proof that that is a necessary model. Like, people have gotten so used to buying what they want online in any industry. So I hope that the government decides to make that a possibility.
And that's not a Health Canada thing.
Yeah.
Those are all, that's a provincial hurdle.
Yeah.
The only thing the legislation says is that so when I get a sales authorization, I have my processing license, I have my sales authorization, I am then allowed to sell to anybody that has a provincial sales license. So this is a provincial hurdle. This is where we need to be lobbying to, the AGLC, the LCD, the
LDB.
I'm sorry.
BCLDB.
BCLDB. There we go. Sorry. So many acronyms. We need to be talking to these provinces, and basically, if we've got the sales authorization, and we are producing a safe, compliant product as per Health Canada standards. We've done our audits with Health Canada. So that these products that we're selling into, say, a retail store are compliant, then there needs to be a special license for those operators to be able to do direct ship to consumers, right? It needs to be a provincial sales license. And that's the same thing for Farmgate. The wine industry went through exactly the same thing where, they were not allowed to sell their wine directly to a consumer when they, if they came and visited their farm, right? And how that grew and changed and evolved was a sales license. And that's it. It's a provincial sales license that is necessary. And right now the provinces have a monopoly on online sales.
Mm-hmm. That's a good reminder that a lot of the issues that I previously in this conversation attributed to Health Canada, really they are provincial policy challenges that
don't even get started on municipal.
Yeah. And I can't speak for like the rest of the provinces, but I know in BC, like the sense that I get from talking to quite a few people across quite a few ministries is that they've kind of recognized, hey, we fucked up. We've kind of made a mistake here. We just assumed everybody would transition because it was legal. And we didn't consider that all these barriers that we'd have put in place, knowingly or otherwise, would create us to fall well behind our expectations as far as growth. And so over the past year and a half in my conversations with people in the ministries, they I've really been trying to make things better, to understand what the struggles are, to try to implement new policy changes to address these situations. We were talking with people from the Cannabis Secretariat office here about Farmgate and direct delivery and kind of sharing perspectives there. And it sounds like the BCLDB, like everything that the what's the name of the council we're part of, Che? The Cannabis Economic Development Council?
Yeah, that's right.
Everybody on that council, all that we put forward to the BC Cannabis Secretariat's office, they said that BCLDB's already heard all this and they're open to it. Whether or not it gets implemented is a question mark, and that's what we in our provincial policy working group are really working hard on, to ensure that things become a lot more accessible for small scale producers here. But it's really exciting to know that nothing that we have talked about is like a hard no. And this includes things like being able to have like an outdoor patio to consume cannabis when you do like a farm gate visit, so we can enable canna tourism, for example. Che, I'm gonna stop talking here because you are our guests and I feel like you might have more to add on this topic, and I don't want to dominate this conversation.
Well, yeah, Farmgate would be ideal for us. It's something that we're working towards. We're on a beautiful little alpine lake where we're incorporating regenerative practices and ecotourism along with cannabis tourism. We would love to be able to take a group through the property, demonstrate permaculture and cannabis. At the end of the day, we have a sampling session of different strains and genetics, and then the opportunity for them to purchase whatever it is they'd like, a lot like we see in the wine industry. I'm going to back up a little bit, and Kieley, you warned me not to go down this path, so excuse me, but I'm gonna talk a little bit about regional district, and God bless their soul. I love them all, but there's some obstacles that are coming from this. So let me give you a little scenario. Here in the Cunees, we have a large number of medical growers, ACMPR, MMAR, and inevitably some of that product ends up on the legacy market. these are the very people that we're trying to encourage to transition. But one of the obstacles we run into is they've been operating for sometimes 10, 20, 30 years in their current setup. They go to the regional district, they go to get their application, and they're told, well, you're not in the proper zoning. And so now they have to fight over basically a very limited number of properties that would meet the requirements of the regional district. So the landlords are raising the rent through the roof because they know there's an obstacle. And so how there isn't even enough properties available that would fit that criteria. So how do we expect this number of legacy growers to make that transition? I think it's really important that we take a good hard look at that, and maybe site-specific amendments are the answer. Maybe this person's been operating for 20 years, there's never been a complaint, even though they're not in the proper zone, we're going to give them a site-specific amendment and grant them their approval. So that is a major obstacle, and I hope I didn't open up too big a can of worms there.
You know what? I went through something similar when we first, like, this was before we even had, because we didn't have a site. We chose to do it on a different site. The site that we were on, to get the amount of electricity in there was too financially burdensome for us to even start. And so we decided business wise that we were better off just renting a building and retrofitting it. And I had to lobby our municipal government. We were in the area that we were in. There was only one zone that allowed for cannabis production, and that was ag general. Well, good luck finding a facility that has 3-phase power or enough power to run an indoor facility that has city water, that is on a main highway, because once you produce your cannabis, then you have to transport it somewhere. And folks that are way out in the boonies are quickly realizing that, oh, the cost of shipping my product, because now you have to have this very specialized shipping company. Half the time, half your profits are going towards transportation alone because of the regulations, right? So like, there's all these little things. But to go back to that, they were going to open it up then to 3 different zones, which was industrial and one other, like some other like agricultural zone. And I went in there and I just had a conversation. There was actually a hope. The universe works really great in ways that they were actually having a cannabis open house to public talk about what do we do. And luckily I got in there, and they didn't have a clue. They don't know what they don't know, and that's okay. That's where you need to be involved with your municipal councils, and you need to be the ones that educate them. And I spoke from a place of, I was professional. I spoke from a place of, like, I went down to Colorado and I spoke with municipal council members in different cities in Colorado. So I came back armed with the evidence from Colorado, and that was speaking from, one city in particular was Aurora in Colorado. And they were like, yeah, like our economy was in the shitter. And we had all these derelict buildings. And then all of a sudden we legalized cannabis. And now all of these buildings were getting retrofitted. They were filling them with employees. Like, the property taxes started going up because now we had this viable industry. So we just opened it wide open and allowed for more cannabis production and more stores. And so when you bring these stories to these council members, you bring them, you tell them, like, these, especially in the Nelson and the Kootenay areas, this economic community has already been here. And if you dampen it, like, these folks that are working in these places, the trimmers, and like, this is how they're putting food on the table. Single moms are trimming. They don't have health care, they don't have job security, they don't have WCB. And so what you're doing is you're creating an unsafe environment. Like, I know it's safe, but this is how you have to talk to council members. I know that lots of, like, legacy growers treat their employees amazing. I know we come from that, but they don't know that. these council members don't know that. And so you have to create this story of what the benefits are and involve them, and not in a this way,
Yeah.
you don't want, like, you don't want, you guys did this and this is
Yeah.
fucked up and, you want to be professional. You're talking about people that speak to the public and speak to professional business owners. And I know we're growing weed and it's a lot of fun and we're known as stoners and all that kind of stuff, but they need to see the side that, that this is a viable business, that is good for their communities, that it helps raise the value of the properties in their communities. And so it's coming at it from a, we're no longer in advocacy. It's legal. Do you know what I mean? We're not advocating anymore for it to be legal. Now we're advocating it for it to be a viable business, right? So we need to kind of, we as advocates need to transition now, because we've made it legal. So now let's make it better.
So I think that's. Sorry, Shay, I'm going to cut you off there. We are at time. In fact, we are at 46 minutes now. No, that's great. That's such a wonderful place to wrap up the main discussion. And I'm so sorry to cut you off here, Shay. I know you're going to add something wonderful there, but we have 15 minutes set now to take questions from the audience. Everybody who is listening here, there is a questions section. People have been asking questions in there. Upvote the ones that you want answered. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to order it by upvotes, and we're just going to go in order and have whoever, Kieley or Che, wants to answer this thing. Oh, something jumped up to number 4, so we're going to start with that. Usman asks, Kieley, what was the micro-processing application procedure like? Were there any challenges from HC with regards to QA position? As a micro, hiring a QA could be challenging both financially and experience-wise. Would Health Canada accept QAs with diplomas? And I'm sorry if I butchered your name there.
That's okay.
Not you, the other person. I know how to pronounce your name, Kieley.
I didn't have too many, like, in my experience, I didn't have too many challenges because my QA was already security cleared and qualified. What I have learned is that you need a QA that has at least experience in food safety, pharma, or cannabis. So if it's in cannabis, they need at least a minimum of a year's experience. I highly recommend avoiding pharma. Food safety that's your golden ticket. Somebody who's got quality assurance experience in food safety, that's would be your go-to. So what, for things like the co-op, you can have a contractor QA as well. So you can have a remote contractor QA. I know it's really tough when you're rural to find these qualified people. Yes, they will accept diplomas. So if you put yourself on as a QA on your cultivation license and you're doing it for a year, and say you're just processing, like, you're just doing your wholesale, and now you've done your QA for a year and you have a diploma, then go for your processing license if you're planning to be your own QA. But that's how they're going to do that. Take courses. There's lots of online courses available. I know Mount Royal, the University of Guelph, but you definitely, in order to become a qualified QA, you need at least that 1 year experience in the cannabis industry in a QA position to qualify.
Okay, so we have quite a few questions. So I'm going to ask you guys to try to limit your answers from now on to 1 minute, just so that we can actually. No, that's totally okay. That was it was a multi-layered question with many questions hidden within. So you did great. Sarah asks, can you tell us more about the hidden costs processors are eating? Open to either of you.
The hidden costs of processors specifically?
Yeah.
Well, let me just back up a little bit to the 5 hands between the cultivator and the consumer. So stage 1, it needs to go to a processor, someone that could package it, process it. Then the next part is a sales license. That processor may or may not have a sales license, so you may have to piggyback off of someone else's sales license, and of course there's a fee associated to that. Next, if you're selling flower, there's a microbial treatment, radiation is the old way of doing that, although there's some really great technologies that have just come out that are much less degrading. And that's one of the things that Co-op is excited to actually demonstrate. Then from there, it goes to the government distribution. then it goes to the retail store, and then it goes to the hands of the consumers. So that's something that I think gets overlooked a lot, how many people have their hands out between the cultivator and the actual consumer. The processor itself, often it's the tolling fee to actually process your material, package it, excise stamp, and sales license. Those are the common associated fees to the processor end of thing.
And insurance is a big one that people overlook often. Recall insurance for being able to return your product if something goes wrong. And most of the provinces haven't figured out yet that you shouldn't require Aurora or Tilray to have the same exact recall insurance as a little micro producing 200 kilograms a year. So there's a pretty ridiculously large $15 million in some provinces recall insurance that you have to have, even though your product in any one given batch is not going to exceed like $100,000 in total value. And then,
this is where lobbying works. I'm the president of the Alberta Cannabis Micro License Association, and we brought this exact point up to the AGLC, and they reduced it. They reduced it. It's now general liability. You don't have to have recall. And so now it's at 2 million for plants and seeds. It's at 5 million for dried flower, and it's at 10 million for 2.0 products. So, which is still hefty, on those 2.0 products. But you also have to look at, how much is the recall going to cost you? And it's not just the cost of the product. There's a lot of costs to doing a recall.
And I know BC also last week actually they reduced the cost of recall insurance for small scale producers, which is amazing as well. All right, next question. David asks, how much do you estimate in dollars is required to establish and finally be cash flow positive? And what size facility is that? I think that's super open-ended because it's a completely different question for every size of facility, for every style of facility, if you're outdoor or indoor. I mean, if you're going to do a purely outdoor grow where you're just selling fresh cannabis immediately to be like flash frozen or dried somewhere else, like you can do that on a really tight budget and find cash flow positivity pretty quickly. But then you have the challenge of you have to find a buyer. You have no window to wait at all, and it can scale up to the millions. If you're going to do a state-of-the-art aquaponics facility, aeroponics facility, so. I'm going to suggest that maybe we skip that because it is super open-ended. Osman asks another question. Does irradiating the flower after the quality in any way alter the quality in any way based on both of your experiences?
Yeah, there's different equipment available. Irradiation is one of the oldest techniques to deal with microbial, and that does definitely impact your quality. As I mentioned, there's a few other machines that have come out recently that have proven to not affect quality. So microbial treatment has come a long ways.
Yeah, and there are certain treatments that that do affect the terpenes and the cannabinoid contents. For example, e-beaming actually increases your THC, right? Which this data, it's minimal, but it affects it. So it's you have to. There's a lot to that side of things with the testing. We're actually going to speak about that directly at the Grower Summit on April 27th and 28th. So sign up for that. That's under HempFest. So we're actually going to be, we have professionals from all sides of the industry, QAs, irradiation companies as well to talk about that specifically.
And let me just say, we attended HempFest last year, the Growing Summit last year, and it was an incredible digital conference. It's incredible. If you're a grower and you want to connect with other growers and learn a whole bunch of stuff and learn things you wouldn't have expected you could even learn, like it's a fantastic summit. So I will give that a plug too. Next up, Robin asks, hi Robin, what do you guys know about Farmgate in BC? This is Robin from High Mountains Organics. It's
I'll
being.
let you take that.
You want to take that?
I said, Shay, I'll take that one. That's BC.
Yeah, we're working hard on it. It's a big goal, and there's some obstacles between now and that actually happening. But as I mentioned, I think that the policymakers are actually listening, and they do have the intention of seeing this come through to fruition. So not much to report yet, but check back in a year and we'll see where we're at.
And I will tell you guys, a few of those people who are part of the various ministries in BC are actually in attendance here. So, Che, anything you want to say to them that you think is you definitely want to make sure takes place with Farmgate?
Yeah, well, again, I really appreciate you listening. Appreciate you having dialogue with the legacy market and actually genuinely trying to make a difference. So just a thank you.
You know, a lot of people are like, oh, that's like a few years out. It's 2022. Well, there's a lot of things that micros have to have in place before they can even consider to be farm gate ready. If you are planning to do farm gate, start getting ready for it now. You will have to have processing, and you will have to have a sales amendment as per Health Canada regulations. So even if the province does approve that, in order for you to sell your product directly, you're still going to have those things in place.
So you could get a processor to contract it for. You could sell bulk flower to somebody else and have them get your flower
and
back
have it brought back. But I'm just saying, if it's something that you want to do directly yourself, now's the time to get those things in place as well.
Cool. Nick asks, "What's your favorite strain?"
Oh God.
You got to pick one. It didn't give you the option for multiple.
Kid when you have 30 kids, I highly.
Yeah, how do you pick a kid? I do have some favorites that we've grown, which is Fruity Pebbles is one of my favorite strains, and I love Wedding Cake as well. But, yeah.
I'm going to be a little bit biased, and I'm going to go with Sarah's Secret.
There you go.
The strain we grow most of, but I'm just a big fan of the flavors. It's a blueberry with really strong gassy chem, but even more so, I love the effect. You know, I'll make this quick, but something you mentioned earlier, Sammy, was about THC drives the marketplace. When I was 18, I went for XXX ice beer because it got me the most drunk. But as I get older, I appreciate the nuances of quality, taste, flavor, effect. So actually our CBG is at 6% of the total cannabinoids. And we're finding these alternate cannabinoids have different effects. And so I really enjoy the uplifting, creative type effect associated to some of these other cannabinoids like CBG.
Mm-hmm. Sam, I'm going to skip your question because it's a test, but she wanted to know if that's Jelly Bean Row behind you, Kieley.
It is, yes.
So I guess I didn't skip it because I shared it right there. Yeah. The next legitimate question, Christine, I know you had that question for a while longer, so I'm going to ask your question first. As a micro cultivator, am I allowed to bring in new strains stock? I was told that I better acquire all my stock now, as I am only allowed to bring in the strains once on the day of licensing. Thanks for putting on this event. You're welcome. Do one of you guys want to answer that?
Go ahead, Kieley.
Yes. You have to bring everything in on your declaration the first day, the very first day. There's no week or anything to get your stuff in. You need to have your starting materials that you listed on site the day of licensing.
Okay, there's 2 questions left. I think we can get them in before 12:30 or your time, Kieley. And Kieley, if you want to take off,
I have to go.
Yeah.
Pretty soon.
Well, I'll say thank you to you, Kieley, right now before we get to the next 2 questions, so that you don't feel the pressure to stay mid answering a thing. Kieley, it's been awesome to have you on here. Thank you so much for making the time.
So nice to meet you, Che.
Yeah, likewise. It was a pleasure to share.
I think we have a lot to talk about. We should definitely connect after this. I think we could definitely smoke one and great stories. For sure.
You guys are both incredible people, and that's why you're both invited here. So I do agree. You guys have a lot of common ground there.
Thank you, Sammy. Great to meet you, Kieley.
You too.
All right, so on to Osman's question here. What advice would you give for a late-stage micro-cultivation applicant? I am mainly worried about sales and have reached out to Patient's Choice. Are there any other options similar to Patient's Choice?
I'm not familiar, actually, with Patient's Choice.
I'll answer that last question. We at CertiCraft are actually building out something similar to Patient's Choice. It won't be live until the end of this year, but we are focused on, like, our mission is to help reduce the barriers for craft growers, whatever that is. So we started with the compliance piece because that's one of the biggest, scariest things for most people. We were gonna do licensing next to have like a really easy SOP generation system where you paid a very small amount of money and had everything templated for you, but recognized that wouldn't help the people that were already licensed who were struggling with a lot of different things. And so our focus now is on the distribution side. So we are setting up partnerships with various LPs that have recognized that craft is a lot better than what they produce, and they want to create craft brands and pay actually what it's worth for those small growers. Bye, Kieley. And we're building out a medical sales. We're getting a big grant from the National Research Council of Canada to build out a processing medical sales modules and to enable things like the co-op here in the Kootenays to be able to have medical sales. And then we're gonna expand that into having a larger platform to allow growers that are on our roster to make sales directly and kind of simplify finding growers for them. But this is like the vision that is a year away realistically, but that's an option that's similar. Che, what for the first part of his question, what advice would you give a late stage micro cultivation applicant? Anything you would share?
First, I got to say that's awesome, Sammy. That's pretty incredible what you guys are working on there. It's exciting.
And we actually came up with that vision at Rosebud Cannabis Farms. This is last summer when I was visiting. I was talking to Derek Doyle, I forget his name, but he's an outdoor standard who's focused on the medical, and we were talking for quite a bit, and that kind of bubbled up as a thing, and I brought it back to my team, and everybody was excited about it. I was like, yeah.
Oh, great. Well, I'm glad Rosebud can be a catalyst for some inspiration. I would go back to the sales part. I would think about reaching out to things like this co-op. There's also seems to be a lot of processors coming up that are really focused on the micro quality batch. So I don't want to throw any names out here right now, but I think there's about 5 or 6 that are really intent on getting high quality craft product now. So it is an avenue that's starting to open up. I would just go through the Health Canada list. In fact, it can't hurt to just reach out, get your name known, make connections and network with all the other producers and cultivators you can. You know, take your place in the industry. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone or send an email.
And there's a lot of groups, like, I think of the Canadian Micro Cultivation Cannabis, whatever it's called, group on Facebook that Tamara Follet started. Speaking of which, Tamara Follet is our guest for episode number 2, which is pretty exciting. So
awesome.
Just a little announcement, I guess, there for everybody who's in attendance here. And you guys will all get emails automatically after this event ends with a link to register for that if you're curious. And yeah, so there's lots of forums like that where people are happy to chat. If you are respectful and open, like, people would love to chat.
And in fact, there may be opportunities to work more hand in hand with licensed producers or standard cultivators. For example, Rosebud is working with a bunch of local micro cultivators to grow our genetics. And the idea is at the end of the year, we hope we can be able to offer them a higher dollar value for their product. And then Rosebud would have extra material to go into its product line. So I think there's some different scenarios out there like that. And in fact, if you're a living soil grower and moving into outdoor, then it might be worth reaching out to us.
All right, we have one last question. We're going to get it even though we're over time, just because why not? We can answer all the questions. David asks, how many and which chemovars are you focused on and why?
That's a great question. We're really focused on outdoor production. I think that's the future of cannabis. What I've seen, I'll try and keep this short, Sammy, but I can't make it.
I know you could spend an hour talking about this, but yeah, let's limit it to 1 minute.
Okay, quick. In the past, because of the legal issues, cannabis has been pushed into our basements and garages. So genetics have been adapted for those situations indoor. But this plant's been around for 13.5 million years. It's evolved under the sun. We showed up in 20, 30 years and decided to do what we want with it and shove it in our closet. This plant wants to be under the sun. It's just a lack of genetics. So really, we've been focused on making high quality genetics that will finish outdoors in a Canadian climate. That's the challenge. Humboldt is a much different climate. So if we take California genetics, try and grow them out here, often they won't work. The real issue here is getting finished before the frost and the rain, the botrytis, the bud rot, powdery mildew. All that comes in October. So if you get a good cultivar that you can harvest outdoor in September, there's a huge advantage. You're also going to get higher terpenes, higher THC levels because the sun is more powerful at that time of the year. So that's what we're really focused on. Okay, maybe I'll give you a sneak peek. We're working on some things like slurricane, but an outdoor version that would finish early. Some of these other really popular modern genetics. We've also dabbled back into the old school stuff our granddads and our dads used to play with, the hash plant, white widow. some of these true historical genetics are exciting. But at the same time, the customer's always right, and the customer wants cookies, they want slurricane, they want a lot of this modern stuff, Mac and so on. So we're trying to find that balance between nostalgia and appealing what the customer wants.
Thanks for that, Che. And thank you, everybody, for being here today. Che, thank you so much for taking your time. I'm reflecting the same exact thing I shared with Kieley earlier to you. Super, super honored that you and Kieley both were here, and we're more than happy to be part of this this event here. To everybody who's in attendance here today, thank you for coming. I hope that you guys really enjoyed this. This is going to be a series. It's going to take place every 2 weeks, Friday at 10:30 a.m. PT, 1:30 a.m. ET. And every single episode, the goal is to bring somebody who's got a completely different perspective. You know, we have Tamara Foley next time, who those of you who know her know she's one of the most outspoken people in this cannabis industry. We're looking to get lawyers involved. We have John Conroy and Jack Lloyd coming for an episode. We have the Cannabis Business Transition Initiative team coming for episode 3. We have craft cannabis associations. We're trying to get different ministries from BC, the CRA, Health Canada. We want to get every and all perspective that touches the craft cannabis industry in some kind of way, so that every single episode you can see what that particular perspective is like. And we really wanted to start it off, because it's a craft cannabis focused show. We wanted the very first episode to feature some really loved and respected craft cannabis producers, and that's why we reached out to Kieley and Che, and we're really stoked that they both said yes.
Thank you, Sammy. It was an honor to be here. Really excited to be part of this, your first podcast. And thank you very much for having me. Next time, we better make it 2 hours.
For you, Che, we'll have a special 2-hour show just for you.
Awesome.
Maybe we'll have that one focused on permaculture and living soils, because I feel like that would be an interesting thing to. Maybe we can bring Kelly from Dragonfly. What's that'd be a good episode.
Earth Medicine. Kelly and Josh, they're amazing.
Yeah, we could do a permaculture focused one. Awesome. But we'll have to give it quite a few months so that we can let other guests come in first before we have you a second time. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Hope you all have a great day and that you enjoyed this. Please let us know what you think. Hit us up on the socials and our emails if you have them. And thank you.
Yeah, hit us up on social network. I'm on Instagram, Chegrown, CheGrown, and then we're Rosebud Farms Ltd. on all the platforms. We hope to connect with you then. And thanks a lot for joining us, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Ending it now.